So Hebrews chapter 12 and verse 14. Our topic this morning is shh. Don't say it. Now, some folks have said to me, are you going to be talking about a cuss word today in church? Well, for many of you, this is not a cuss word, but for me and my upbringing, the word that we're going to discuss for most of my Christian life, to me, was a cuss word, all right? And so Hebrews chapter 12 and verse 14 says, make every effort to live in peace with everyone. All right, I got that. I got to live in peace with everyone and to be, there's that word, holy. That's a cuss word. Paul just cussed to the Hebrew church. And to be holy, because without holiness, no one will see the Lord. Now some of you would say, well, why is that a cuss word, Scott? Why is that a cuss word to you? Well, in my early Christian upbringing, holiness to me was just a horrible word. When I'd hear that word in church, I would just shudder and fear would go over me, and partly because my roots go back into a holiness type church, a holiness movement. Now, I don't know if you've ever been around holiness folks. How many of you have ever been in a holiness church or around holiness people? They are some strict folks, okay?
Yes, come on.
I mean, they go beyond strict. They made the Pharisees in Jesus' day look like wusses, okay? That's how strict they are. In our church, women could not wear makeup.
Right?
If you wore makeup, you were a Jezebel and a hussy. Now, I'm sorry, some women need makeup. Okay, there are some women. I've been over at your place to pick something up early in the morning, and you come to the door without makeup, and I didn't even know who you were. I asked for you by name, and you said that is me, but what I saw on Sunday and what I saw at 8:30 in the morning, anyway. Women were not allowed to wear pants. They had to wear a dress all the time. Their arms were covered, dresses up to their necks. I mean, it was bad. The only thing that a woman could do to improve her appearance was to pile her hair high on her head. So all the church ladies had hairdos that went up about 2 feet, okay? Oh, guys were not allowed to wear jeans. Levi's were out. Guys couldn't have long hair. Girls could not have short hair. In fact, about the time that I was going into the ministry in our group, Grace International, back in that day, we were the rebel church. In fact, we were the only church in all of Grace International that allowed hippies into the church. In fact, we were the only church that allowed hippies in ministry. So when I was going into the ministry, all of my peers throughout Grace International, it was believed that a minister had to wear a black suit, not a gray, not a blue, not a brown, a black suit, white dress shirt, black tie, every day of the week. It meant, thank God I didn't grow up under him. But our founder used to teach that when you worked on your car, because pastors were poor and had to work on their own car, had to change their own oil, you did it in a suit. When you mowed the grass, you mowed the grass in a suit. Why? Because you had to be instant in season and out of season. You had to be ready at all times to go. If the phone rang, to run across town and pray for sister so-and-so or brother so-and-so. You had to be always ready to preach the gospel. Now, I don't know. I've never asked anybody for a message while they were mowing their grass. I don't get it. But that's what we believe. So here we are. We're the renegade church. We formed as a church, never meaning to become a church. We're a bunch of hippies and drug addicts and long hair. And they didn't know what to do with us because we were not holy. But they could not deny the fact that Jesus was saving all kinds of people up and down the coast that didn't fit their profile. Fortunately for us, they had enough wisdom to step back and to say, we don't understand it, we don't like it, we won't go there, but if God is doing something, we're going to take our hands off and let the Lord do it. When I was going into ministry, my wife looked at me at the time and she said, does that mean, because we were followers of Catherine Kuhlman and Amy Simple McPherson, my wife said, does that mean that I have to wear a white nurse's uniform and those thick, ugly old lady stockings and white nurse shoes to church because I'm a pastor's wife? That's what they all did. And I said, oh, heck no, you dress like that. We've got some serious marital problems because that is God ugly. So I made the leap in the ministry saying, if I come with my long hair, I come with my beard, I come with my tore up Levi's and my shirt that doesn't cover much of me. This is the way I come because this is how Jesus saved me, and I am not putting a suit on. And I did it for years. But holiness, oh, that was such a horrible word because it meant, as even a young man before I was married, it meant that I could not date cute girls. Because all the girls in church were ugly. Because they were holy. And holy to me was ugliness. We used to joke, us guys, we need to go down the street to the bar and get what we call Jezebel girl. We need to get her, date her, then get her saved. So at least we could be with somebody good looking. And not all these girls in church that look homely. But the Bible, despite my narrow view of holiness, the Bible continues to talk about it. In fact, the Bible has a lot to say about holiness. In fact, our text says that without holiness, no one will see the Lord. That's interesting when you think about it. Without holiness, no one will see the Lord. Now, as I thought about it, seeing the Lord, what does seeing the Lord mean? I thought, well, there's all this political stuff about President Trump, and whether you're for him, against him, I don't know. That's not where I'm going. But regardless of your political views, the fact is that he is our president. The fact is he is my president. He is the president of the United States. And I can say that as such, because he is the president, and because I'm a citizen of the United States, I can say that in some way, in some sort of a way, we have relationship, he and I. He is the president, the leader of this nation, and I am a citizen within this nation. But at the same time, 320 million other Americans can say the same thing. Now, the fact is that even though I say that we are a part of the same group, and I'm in this country, and I can look at his picture every day on the news, and I can read all the things that he is saying in the news, and I can watch TV and see him move and act and do what he does, the fact remains that I have never sat in his presence. In fact, the fact remains that I haven't even talked to him on the phone. He's never called me to ask me what I think. Oh. Imagine that.
Wow. Bad precedent.
But I can say that in some way I have some relationship. The truth is that I've never seen him. I've seen pictures of him, but I've never seen him. I've never sat with him. I've never gotten to know him. And I believe that in many ways that represents many believers' relationship with the Lord. You see, many believers today, they claim Jesus as their leader, much like we claim President Trump as our leader. Many believers today say they follow him, or they'll follow his teaching, or they'll take his leadership. Many believers will say that he has even healed them, that they've been touched by his grace and they've been healed. And some claim that they have been blessed by him. But the reality is they've never sat in his presence. They don't know him because they've never sat in his presence. They've never had a one-on-one discussion with him, because you really don't know somebody until you're with them. Some of you I know, but I really don't know because we've never sat in the cafe and had a meal together. That's why the cafe to me is so important. Because it is our time to connect, to know somebody, to share a meal with somebody. In the Bible days, sharing a meal was very important. It was the way they fellowshiped. But if I've never sat with you, I can see you this morning and I might even know your name. But I don't know nothing about you. I don't know your likes, your dislikes, your fears, your joys. I know nothing about you other than what side of the building you sit on a Sunday morning. It's when we sit together and we talk that I begin to know who you are. So many believers, they get a picture of Jesus. Many believers have even been touched by Jesus. But I believe there are few that have sat in his presence. Now, I'm not saying that to point my finger at anybody. I'm just saying it as a matter of fact. There are few that have actually sat in his presence. You see, because it's when you sit in his presence that something miraculous begins to happen. It only happens in his presence. I can try to do all of the good things. And I can try to be everything that maybe I think he wants me to be. I can work at it hard. But I'm here to tell you, you're fighting a losing battle. You will never be that. It takes being in his presence. 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 18. Paul writes, "And we all who with unveiled faces contemplate the Lord of glory." All right, I got that. "And are being transformed into his image with everlasting glory, which comes from the Lord." Right, did you catch that? We're being transformed into his image with everlasting glory, which comes from the Lord. So there is a transforming that takes place as we sit in his presence. Paul started off in the verse by saying, we all who with unveiled faces. The veil comes off and we have the ability to sit in his presence. And when we sit in his presence, something magical begins to happen and we become transformed into his image. Now the glory of the Lord is another way of saying the greatness of the Lord. So to see him is to know him. Amen. And when we know him, we become transformed to be like him.
Amen.
All right. The ESV translation puts it this way: are being transformed into the same image from one degree of glory to another. That's amazing. So every time I sit in his presence, I am being transformed from one degree of glory into another degree of glory.
Amen.
The more I sit in his presence, the more degrees of glory I'm being transformed into. Does that make sense? It comes by being in his presence. Have you ever seen a believer that you know is a believer because at one point or another you saw them in church, but now you're seeing them out of church and they're everything but the image of Jesus? Have you ever seen that?
Yeah. All of them.
They're mean, they're critical, they're condescending. They're all anything but loving. We were sharing with some friends last week or the week before that many years ago, we used to go out every Sunday after church to this one Chinese restaurant. Desiree probably remembers that. And I still remember Deborah and I always ordered the number 24. It was good. And we always sat in the area with the same waitress. Her name was Trista. A really nice girl. Anyway, one Sunday, and I knew them, but they didn't know me. But I used to see a pastor of a church across town. He would come in on Sundays also. And he'd always bring in his staff. He'd bring in the youth person, which happened to be his son-in-law and his daughter. And they'd take this big round table. There'd be about 10 of them there. And then we had maybe 5, 6, 8, I don't know. And we'd be over there, and I would watch him. And one day, a couple of times, Trista would come by our table, and we became really good friends. She'd sit with us sometimes. We chatted up, and she was crying. And I said, Trista, why are you crying? And she said, you see that table over there? Pointing to the other pastor. And I said, uh-huh. She said, I hate it when they come in. I wish they would sit in somebody else's section. I hate it because they are so mean to me. And they make me feel so bad that every time they come in, by the time I'm done waiting on them, I'm in tears. And I thought, now that is the strangest thing. Here you have the whole ministry team of the church putting this waitress in tears. That's the youth guy, the worship guy, the pastor, the associate pastor, and all their wives and kids. And they're making this young lady cry? What's wrong with this picture? The answer is simple. They haven't been around Jesus. And because they have, I don't care what their worship is like. You know, you can have worship void of his presence. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't say that. Did I say that?
Come on.
True.
True.
You can have preaching void of his presence. You can even have a form of worship without his presence. I made a decision this last week. I made a decision. I said, God, I don't care how good we sound. And I don't care how good the musicians are, whether they're here or they're not here. I would like it to be good. Don't get me wrong. But more than that, I desire your presence. Because I remember a day when I got saved. I remember a day when you didn't have all of this. I remember a day where you were lucky if you had somebody on a piano. Oh, you hit pay dirt if you had a pianist. And I remember some old funky dude that couldn't hardly sing a lick, leading worship on his guitar, and he couldn't play a lick either. But I remember we sang some funky songs. I mean, I look back and I go, who wrote that stuff? Oh my God. But when we did, the presence of God moved. and touched this guy, and touched that guy, and touched that guy, and healed that person. We didn't have healing lines. The Holy Spirit went out in the audience and healed people and delivered people. People would cry. People would fall out. People would jump in joy. And it was the move of the Holy Spirit like I haven't really seen much since.
Amen.
Because when we came to church, we came seeking His presence.
Right.
I wonder how many people walked through the doors today and said in their spirit, Jesus, I want your presence. I want to meet with you today. I'm looking for you, and I want you to reach out and touch me. I wonder how many people, if we were honest, would say we did that.
Yeah.
Most people today, they walk in church saying, I hope the message is good today. I hope it makes me feel good. I hope they have a good movie before the message today, because I really dug the movie last week. I think it's really cool. The sound just is like being in Edwards Theater. I really hope they have that, and I hope they have my favorite food in the cafe. If you came for that, I promise you that's what you're going to get. But that doesn't change a life. You can hear people hear good preaching all the time and never change. That doesn't change a life. There's only one thing that changes a life, and that's to be in His presence.
Amen.
And the more you're in His presence, the more that you will change. The world doesn't know Jesus. You can expect only one thing from them, and that is bad. Don't ever be surprised when people treat you the way they do or act the way they do. Just remember, they're living a life void of His presence. And because of that, they are ruled by the principality of this air and the world today. And they're evil to the core. I have to remind myself of that when I'm in Walmart. And that crazy dude decides to stop in the middle of the aisle with his cart and read labels. And it's like, are you so self-centered and insensitive to the fact that I'm behind you just staring at you while you bend over and read one label after another, taking up the whole aisle? Move that cart out of the way. And I have to remember, they are insensitive. And they are selfish. Because that's the way of the world. But I've sat in His presence. And because I've sat in His presence, I have changed. And I'm more like Him. Therefore, I'm patient. And I'll stand here and watch you read labels. John chapter 14, verse 19 through verse 21. Jesus is saying to the disciples, He's saying, before long, the world will not see me anymore. But you will see me. Because I live, you also will live. And on that day, you will realize that I am in the Father, and you are in me, and I am in you. Now listen, whoever has my commands and obeys them, he is the one who loves me. Oh, come on, don't look at me that way. That's in any relationship. If you love somebody, you kind of do what they want to do, don't you? Those of you that are married, you know what I'm talking about. If Deborah says, I don't like that kind of TV show, how many of you know I'm not going to go home and put it on every day? I love her, so I obey her in a sense. That's all that Jesus is saying. Those you love, you do what they want. And then He says, he who loves me will be loved by my Father, and I too will love him, and what? Show myself to him. That's powerful. How many of you would say, I really want Jesus to show himself to me?
Yeah.
I've had those thoughts. How can I see you and see more of you? Moses saw God on a number of occasions. Elisha. You go through the patriarchs and the prophets. I'm doing a study this next week on the 12 patriarchs and what did they dream. They all had an encounter with God that was life-changing. Jesus says, he says, I will show myself to you. I will show myself. The word there is the word to manifest. And the word manifest is to make clear or evident to the eye or the understanding. It is to show plainly.
Thank you.
So I'm going to manifest in front of you. I'm going to make plain to you who I am. I'm going to show myself clearly to you. Let's stop for a minute. Did he say that to all believers? Did he say that to everybody? This is a trick question. You're safe if you don't answer. No, he didn't. He said it to a select few. He said, to those that obey my command, I will show myself to you. So that says to me that those that don't obey his command, he ain't going to show them anything. So if you want more of God's presence and you want more of God, the answer is simple. It goes back to the word holiness. It is to do what he wants you to do. And as we obey him, he then has promised, how many of you know, I can take him up on his promise that he will show me more of himself. Now you can go to church every Sunday of every week. You can pay tithes. You can do all the right stuff, but go home and live like the devil. And a lot of people do, and he ain't going to show you nothing. You can read his word, and you're not going to get the revelation other people get. You can say a 2-minute prayer, and you're not going to get the touch and the feeling of his presence in the room that other people do. He's not going to speak to you his will. He's not going to give you direction. He's not going to show you himself. Because he has reserved that for a certain group of people, those that obey his commandment. 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 17 says, therefore, come out from among them and be separate. Touch no unclean thing, and I will receive you. Paul is quoting what God said to Moses. God said this to Moses. He said, you come out from among the people, and you be separate, and do not touch the unclean thing, and I will receive you what? I will receive you into my presence. There's something you have to do to be received into his presence. What does it mean, in his presence? It means to bring from the unseen into the seen realm. That's revelation. It means to bring from the unheard into the realm of hearing. It means to bring from the unknown into the realm of knowing. That is to be in his presence. I don't know about you, but I want to be in his presence. How much of God do you want? How much of his presence do you want? How much of his presence do you want to change you? That's a question I can't answer for you. That's something that you have to answer before God. Because it's unlimited. He doesn't put a cap on it. He doesn't say, oh, you can only have so much. There's no cap. It's unlimited. That Do you know there is at least one, if not two people, I believe the second person left, no, there are two, I'm sorry, there was a third, I believe a third, that enjoyed God's presence to the extent that God picked them up from the earth and brought them into heaven. Elijah. Elijah walked in God's presence to the extent God said, I'm not even going to have a burial for you. You are not even going to die. You're coming straight to heaven. We spend so much time together, you and me, we might as well do away with this body, and I'm going to bring you right into my presence right now. And Elijah was sucked up into heaven. Amazing. Is there a limit to his presence? No, there is not. He sets no limit. We are the only ones that place a limit. I'm going to end with this. I want to define what really is holiness. What is holiness? I talked about my wrong definition of holiness, what I believed it to be, how you dress, how you look. It has nothing to do with that. The Greek word for holiness is the word hagios. It means to set apart for God and to be exclusively His. Okay. To set apart for God and to be exclusively His. That's the word holiness. I'm not even going to go with what you can do, what you can't do. That's a bunch of garbage, okay? When you are set apart for God and you are exclusively His, you automatically know what you can do and you can't do. It's no longer a question. All right, let me break it down this way. Before I met Deborah, I didn't care one bit what she thought. I didn't care what she liked or didn't like. I didn't care what impressed her or didn't impress her. I didn't care one bit about her because I hadn't met her. I lived my life for me. It was what I wanted, where I wanted to go, what I wanted to do, when, where, what I wanted to eat. It was all about me. Selfish, self-centered me. Because I was all there was. But when I met her and fell in love and we became married, now all of a sudden, what she wanted became important to me. Are you getting that? What she thought became important to me. Her desires became important to me because there was relationship and there was love. I don't want to do what she doesn't want me to do because I love her. If she says, I really don't want you to go on that trip, I'm going to cancel the trip. I may want to go on the trip, but I'm going to cancel it because it's something she doesn't want to have happen. In fact, I'm so goofy about it that I want to make sure she's happy. Go figure that out. When she wakes up in the morning, yeah, I do. I bring her coffee, I admit. I bring her coffee. Then I bring her a second cup of coffee before she goes to work. Yep, I care enough about her that I make her a breakfast in the morning. I'm not bragging. I'm not trying to put any guys down. You might think, oh, men don't do that. I'm sorry, I do. And I even drive across town to bring her lunch at lunchtime. So she don't have to get in her car, race down to some funky old place, eat some junky food, and race back. I bring her lunch. Now some of you say, why? Why do you do that? Oh, you're just henpecked. You're just a wuss. Why do you do that? No. Because I want to make sure she's happy. And how many of you know that if I'm making sure she's happy, we're closer? But if I ignore what she wants in life, and I just continually blow it off, how many of you know we ain't going to be very close? There's going to be some distance there, right? Well, that's holiness. That's holiness. If you're in love with Jesus, I don't know about you, but I am. If you're in love with Jesus, you do the things He wants you to do, driven by love, not by fear. And when you're in love and you do the things He wants, He, as He promised, reveals Himself to you. Some of you got a good thing going on Valentine's because you showed up with candy or flowers or something like that, right? Right? So because you did something that she loved, she responded back by being warm and affectionate and loving back to you. It's a natural response. Jesus is just saying, what you all do naturally, I do spiritually. You see, when you please me, I reveal myself to you. But if you're going to disk me, I ain't revealing myself to you. Paul said, 2 Corinthians chapter 2 and verse 15, those who receive His new life no longer live for themselves. Instead, they will live for God. See, when God touched my heart and He infused Himself in me in much of the way that we became married, He and I became married, and I began to understand what He desired. And I was eager to do what He desired out of love. That's why we don't preach hellfire and brimstone. When you do stuff out of fear, it does you no good. But when you respond in love, it does all the good. So there are two aspects to holiness. It's really simple. There are two. The first aspect is my position in Christ. My position in Christ. I am a son. I'm an heir. I am family. It has nothing to do with me. Nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with Him. My last name is Mulvey. Some would say Mulvey. There's family dispute over how to pronounce it. Anyway, my heritage, I'm half Portuguese, I'm a quarter Irish, and a quarter French. I did not select my family. If I did, I would have leaned more to the Portuguese side where I could tan at least, and dump the Irish side. That seems to dominate. I don't know why. I'm only quarter. But I would have gone whole-blooded Portuguese, okay? But I didn't have a choice. I didn't wake up and tell my dad, yeah, I chose you. You better do a good job in raising me. Yeah, my mom, you better make some good dinners here because I chose you. I didn't choose them. They, in a sense, chose me. Jesus said, you didn't choose me. I chose you. And I elected to bring you into my family. It has nothing to do with you. So in a sense, there is a holiness that comes simply because I'm in the family. But that's not where it stops. How many of you know that there are parents that are embarrassed of their kids? There are parents that have no relationship with their kids. There are parents whose kids are in prison and incarcerated because of some of the bad mistakes they've made. Just because you're in the family does not mean that you have family relation. Come on. So there is a second aspect to holiness, and it is this. Because I am in the family, I make a choice to live a life that represents my family heritage. I live my life according to my family heritage. The things that my family does, that's what I elect to do. I live my life accordingly. How many of you remember the show The Beverly Hillbillies? They moved to Hollywood, right? If you don't know the show and you're too young, go look it up on some old thing and watch it. You get a kick out of it. I used to love that show. Watched it every week. So they moved to Beverly Hills. Here's what happened. Here's what happened. You see, they moved to a new zip code. But they wanted to keep their old zip code while living in a new zip code. Many believers do that. God invites you into the family, so we move into a new zip code. But we really want to keep the old zip code. No, you don't understand. I get it. I'm in a new zip code, but I still want to go party a little bit. I still want to go back to the old zip code. You're a hillbilly. You're flat out a Christian hillbilly. Shame on you. Leave that junk behind you. Live in the new zip code. They're all driving Bentleys and Porsches and Range Rovers, and you want to show up in that old dilapidated pickup truck with grandma in the back in a rocking chair. You're a hillbilly. You don't fit your new neighborhood. When God invites you into His family, that's pretty impressive. I mean, I don't know about you, but I like the new lifestyle. It sure beats the old one. You see, I'm going to leave you with this. Holiness, it's not about what you can do and you cannot do. Get that out of your head. It's rather this. The closer I get to Him, the more I change. The closer I get to Him, the more I change. Which results in this. The more I change, the more I get even closer to Him. And the closer I get to Him, the more I change. I can tell you, don't do this and don't do that. You know what? I'm not even going to tell you that. Go do it. If that's what you think makes you happy, you go do it. But I will challenge you with this. When you fall in love with Jesus, all of a sudden, you don't need a church service to tell you the do's and don'ts of living this life. All of a sudden, because you love Him, you're interested in what He wants. And there's this war that goes on between the flesh and the spirit of holiness within you. And as long as you're not in His presence, the war is going to be won by the flesh all the time. But when I'm in His presence, the flesh becomes crucified, and the more I change. And the more I change, I'm now becoming holier. So the more I change, I'm holier, the more of His presence is revealed to me. So I get another dose of His presence at another level. I change again. Now I'm at another level of holiness.
Amen.
I'm light years away from what I used to do. I'm at another level of holiness. And His presence now is revealed to me at a greater level. And oh my gosh, I change again. And if I keep doing this, I'm going to change so much, so often, that pretty soon He just says, come on home. And you won't see me anymore. I'll be gone. You won't even get to do my funeral. You'll wonder where He went. God said, I took him home. We were getting along too. We were too close. He had to come stay with me. So you have to ask yourself, holiness is a byproduct. It ain't the thing. Holiness is a byproduct of your love for Jesus and your closeness to Him. Somebody said, well, Pastor, shouldn't you tell them they can't do this? Or shouldn't you tell them that they can't do this other thing? Shouldn't you tell them that they shouldn't go to that place? And my answer to that question is, heck no. I ain't going to tell them that. Because if they're not walking in His presence, regardless of what I tell them, they're going to do it. Flesh will always win. The ability to change that comes from being in His presence. The ability to change that. So if you're here and you're struggling with something, I can name a half a dozen things that I know people struggle with. But you're here and you're struggling with something. You say, well, Pastor, I fall to that all the time. I'm so weak in that area. I don't know how to stand against it. You know what my answer to you is? I'm not going to tell you just resist and white knuckle it. No. Go to His presence. When you're having that issue or you're having that temptation, or take a minute and say, you know what, Jesus, flesh is winning. Need a dose of presence. I'm going to sit here and open my Bible. I'm going to pray. I'm going to worship. I need your presence because in your presence I have the ability to change. Amen. Actually, in His presence, you don't do any changing. He does it through you. I'm not changing anything. He's changing me. It's a byproduct of His presence. Amen? Amen.